Welcome to the SciStarter podcast. In this episode, the fall bird migration.
We are inextricably linked to nature, and birds are a key part of those threads that hold together this really complex tapestry.
That's world-famous ornithologist Pete Marra from Georgetown University and the Smithsonian Bird Migratory Center. We're chatting about how you can enjoy this fall's incredible migration and also help monitor and protect threatened birds. Where do birds go in the winter? Aristotle thought they hid, maybe by transforming into fish or frogs and hiding underwater or underground. Many civilizations would record birds' departure and arrival, but where they were in between was a mystery. And then, in 1822, a hunter in Germany discovered the Stork or arrow stork. It was a white stork with a 31-inch spear through its neck. The spear was made of African hardwood. Over time, 24 more storks were discovered in Europe with African spears through them. And since it was known that spears can't travel thousands of miles, it was concluded that storks must fly thousands of miles. And before we continue, it's already hard to fly from sub-Saharan Africa to Europe. So just consider how tough storks must be to make that journey with spears through their necks. And also, if 24 have been found, imagine how many hundreds or thousands made the journey and were never found. They died over lakes or in deep forests or on mountaintops or whatever. And imagine how many hunters there must be hunting them down in Africa. And another thought, imagine being that hunter in Africa and feeling the excitement of hurling your spear and hitting one of these big birds and thinking about how it would feed your entire family, maybe some friends, and maybe thinking, wow, that is an awesome spear. And then as you run excitedly to retrieve the big bird and all of a sudden you see it get up and hop around, you're thinking like, whoa. And then it flaps its wings and runs and goes airborne, and you're like, it's not going to get far with that spear through it, right? And then it like flies up and away and over the horizon and disappears with your spear. So you've not only lost that bird, you've lost a great spear, which can't be cheap, right? So this is a tragedy for the stork, but it's also a tragedy for the hunter. But kind of a windfall for ornithologists, because after discovering the stork, they began paying attention, and then they started banding birds and discovering extraordinary bird migrations. Arctic terns that go from the Arctic to the Antarctic, traveling over 20,000 miles, vast flocks of millions of sandhill cranes over North America, snow geese, colorful songbirds that fly from Canada all the way down to the Amazon and from Europe all the way down to Africa. And that is our topic for this podcast, the fall migration, which is happening right now, really all over the world. Birds are either leaving or arriving or passing through by the hundreds of millions and even billions over the course of the fall. Now, seeing these massive wheels of nature turning just gives you a different perspective and sense of awe and wonder. And if you're missing it, just try not to. Try to get outside somewhere in nature to witness it. We've got some great tools that will help you do that we share on scistarter.org. More about those later. But now, our guest is ornithological and ecological legend Pete Marra, who is Dean of the Earth Commons Institute for the Environment and Sustainability at Georgetown University, former director of the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center, and author of Birds of Two Worlds, The Ecology and Evolution of Migration. He's also authored or co-authored 260 peer-reviewed scientific papers. Hey, Pete, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us.
Sure. Yeah, happy to be here.
So, I think a lot of people hear about, how there's billions of birds that are migrating overhead, I guess mostly, many of them overnight, starting this time of year, and might think, oh, then there's no problem. It's such a massive migration. Birds must be doing okay. What are the problems? Why are we worried about birds and especially the ones migrating right now?
Well, we published a paper back in 2016 that reported the loss of about a third of our migratory birds. Almost 3 billion, a decline of almost 3 billion birds in the last 40 years or so,
Wow.
which is a tremendous decline. And if you're the kind of person like me, where when you get up in a plane and you look around and you look at the amount of buildings and parking lots and agricultural areas and ball fields, it shouldn't be that much of a surprise actually, because we've decimated and changed and gotten rid of at least a third of the natural habitats that are out there. And so when you do that over time, when you keep on converting natural habitat into other types of land use that are not necessarily suitable for nature or wildlife, you're going to reduce the population size of these animals. And on top of that, you let out cats or you put up buildings that kill birds. You're going to cause these sorts of population declines. And so in many ways, those results that we published in Science in 2016 were not that surprising. They were really a validation of something that I've long suspected. The challenge here is that we are dependent on those birds in many ways that we don't want to recognize as humans. We think many folks think they're completely independent of nature and our environment. But the reality of it is that we are inextricably linked to nature, and birds are a key part of those threads that hold together this really complex tapestry.
Huh. And I was going to ask about what people can do as citizen scientists, but some of the things that you mentioned that are problems are things that we could help mitigate just as regular people, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that we can do to protect birds?
Well, you can do lots of things. The biggest thing and the most important thing is vote in a way that is pro-environment. We really need to protect our environment, whether that's climate change legislation or it's protecting species in the habitats that they depend on, whether it's your local watershed. I mean, these decisions that are made by policymakers, by politicians, that change those habitats, that convert them into highways or whatever it happens to be, those are the big decisions that really have to be protected. And we need to get people in offices that are going to make the right decisions that make nature safe and protect it for the long term. But there's also things that you can do in your own yard. That is things like, plant native species. Native species are really essential for migratory birds in particular. Native plants have co-evolved insects that emerge from those tissues that birds depend on. When you plant a non-native plant, like a liriope or a ginkgo, most of those don't have insects on them that are equivalent to, say, what an oak or a black cherry might have had on it. And so we're totally reducing the food. The grocery stores shelves are empty when it comes to a bird flying through a landscape that's dominated by non-native plants. So by doing those sorts of things, planting native species, keeping cats indoors, telling your neighbors to keep cats indoors, putting on decals on your windows, on your houses, these are all really important threats that can be reduced in yards that migratory birds use, not just during the day, but when they need to rest just for a moment at night, to then continue migrating, they can avoid those sorts of threats and survive perhaps just another day.
Huh. And how about lights? Because I know, especially in near cities like where we live, a lot of people are security conscious and have all sorts of security floodlights and things like that. On the other hand, I guess birds can be, a lot of them are migrating nocturnally, and they can be confused by that.
That's right. And lots of cities have started lights out campaigns because birds are attracted to lights. And so when you turn lights off, they tend to leave. When you turn lights on, birds, as they're migrating at night, they come in and often collide with buildings. And so that's the big problem with having those lights on in cities, is that they will come in and become disoriented and collide with buildings. And birds have hollow bones. And so when they're flying and they collide with a wall or something else, chances are they're going to die. They may be awake and they may fly off out of your hand the next morning, but chances are there's a hemorrhage or something else that's going on that's going to impact the long-term probability of survival of that bird.
Okay. Now, how about citizen science? And I know, at Cornell Laboratory for Ornithology, they're really big on citizen science efforts. Audubon has a lot of them as well. How do those help?
Citizen science helps in a lot of ways. I see two primary ways that citizen science is really been instrumental in protecting birds in the long run. The first is education. I mean, anytime you can create an experiential learning opportunity for people to go out and do something, it's going to stick in their head more than just reading about it in a magazine, because they will have experienced exactly what's happening. And so when you do that, there's so much enjoyment in just doing that. So they're always going to remember it. It's transformational from that perspective. But the other really important thing that citizen science does is it allows us to scale findings from the local to the continent. It really allows us to scale up results to the level at which we can really make much bigger generalizations about some phenomenon, no matter what it is. It may be migration. And especially for migratory birds that move over large spatial scales, being able to scale up our understanding is just so critical when you're trying to understand an animal that moves from the boreal forest of Canada all the way down to the tip of Tierra del Fuego in Argentina. And so citizen scientists, like in a program like eBird, where birders can enter their data and observations in a single day on an app. And those same sorts of things are then done by millions of people all over the world. That scales up to tell us something that's really remarkable about patterns of migration or distribution, levels of distribution and abundance that, a level of understanding that we just never had before eBird. And so citizen science and just putting your data into eBird has also been transformational in terms of our understanding of how birds are distributed. And when I talk to folks that study other taxa, like snakes or dragonflies, or, there's always taxon envy for what the bird people have pulled together and our understanding of how birds are distributed across the landscape.
Are there any research papers that you've seen recently that have relied on citizen science data? Maybe the paper that you did for Science, but anything even more recently where we can say, wow, that citizen contributions have made a difference, and we discovered have this new finding.
Oh, there are hundreds of papers that depend on citizen science data. The paper that we published in Science is dependent on breeding bird survey data, which was one of the initial, citizen science projects out there. Probably one of the earliest is one called, it's the Christmas bird counts that were initiated at the turn of the 19th century, 1900 and something or other, when the first Christmas bird count was done, counting non-breeding birds. And then in the early 1960s, sort of post-DDT, Chan Robbins was hanging out with one of my heroes, Rachel Carson, and talking about the decline of birds due to this use of DDT to reduce mosquitoes. And it occurred to them that there needed to be some monitoring put in place, and they created these breeding bird survey routes all over the U.S., parts of Canada. And that is 100% citizen science. And over the years, it's proved invaluable in terms of our understanding of birds and their population sizes over time, and which birds are in trouble and which birds are okay. And so, and there's so many examples. In fact, I created a citizen science project called Neighborhood Nest Watch at the Smithsonian, where we would go in people's yards, color band birds, so you could identify individuals. You put color bands on their legs, like a red over a green and an aluminum band, and people would then watch their bird. They know it's their bird because they see the unique combination of color bands. And by doing this over time, you can actually keep track of their survival probability. And we had some houses that were done by citizens, and we had some houses that were done by Smithsonian scientists. And we found that citizen scientists collected data that was as good as data collected by trained scientists. And so we have other examples of that as well, where we can demonstrate that the data are just as reliable, just as robust as data collected by professionals.
Wow, great. All right, anything else you'd like to share?
No, other than collecting the data, just go out and enjoy birds. Just go out and enjoy nature, especially at this time of year when we've got literally, hundreds of thousands and perhaps millions of birds migrating every day south to the tropics. And some of them stay here all winter. Put up a bird feeder, not close to a window, not close to a window, but far from a window, and enjoy birds, enjoy nature in general. It's something that we are closely tied to, and we have to rekindle our bonds to nature. That ecological belonging is essential for us to ultimately protect and respect nature.
Great. All right. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure.